So hello, welcome to the Applied Cryptography session. We begin this session with the paper Communicating through Subliminal-Free Signatures by George Teşeleanu.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So hello everybody. My name is George Teşeleanu, and my talk today is about two kinds of subliminal channels that can be embedded into two such called subliminal-free signatures. So here is the outline of my talk. I'll first start with an introduction, and then I will show you how to embed fail-stop and cuckoo's channels into two subliminal-free signatures. And then I will end up with some conclusions. Now, subliminal channels were first introduced by Simons, and they offer a possible solution to the prisoner's problem. What exactly is this problem? We have two people, Alice and Bob, that are incarcerated. Alice is the sender and Bob is the receiver. Now, these two people want to communicate confidentially and undetected by their guard, Walter. Unfortunately, Walter imposes to read all their communication. So subliminal channels offer a possible solution to exactly this problem, and they achieve information transfer by modifying the original specification of cryptographic primitives. One such example is to modify the way random numbers are generated. Now, in order to prevent such channels, Simons himself proposed the signing protocol that it's interactive between Alice and Walter. If Walter is satisfied with the outcome of the protocol, then he publishes the signature. Otherwise, he discards it. So this signature is based on the DSA signature. Here is the public parameter generation. This is exactly as in the case of DSA. So we have two large prime numbers, P and Q. Q divides P minus 1. And we also have an element G of order Q and a hash function. And this, all these parameters are public. Now, when Alice wants to sign a message, she first chooses her secret key, X, randomly from integers modulo Q, and then she computes her public key, which is simply G raised to the power X, modulo P. This again is the same as in the case of DSA. Now, here is the actual signing protocol. So, Alice first chooses a random key prime modulo P, P minus 1, and she computes T as G raised to the power K prime. She then sends this T to Walter, who chooses another key second randomly from integers modulo P minus 1. After he chooses this K, he sends it to Alice. And finally, Alice first computes her K as the product between K prime and K second. Then she computes her ephemeral public key, R, which is simply G raised to K, modulo P, modulo Q. And then she actually signs the message. And the signature actually is the inverse of K multiplied by the sum of the hash of the message plus X times R. And she sends all this data, M, R, and S, to Walter. If R is equal to T raised to K second, modulo P, modulo Q, then Walter publishes the signature. Otherwise, he aborts. What's the actually philosophy behind this? So, as I said before, Alice can modify the way that K prime is generated. So in order to prevent that, Walter chooses a random K second, a real random K second, and uses this number to blind K prime. So the resulting number K should be random because K second is random, no matter what Alice does. Now, Simons claimed that this protocol is subliminal-free. Unfortunately, Desmond showed that this protocol actually is not subliminal-free, and he described a fail stop channel that can be implemented in this protocol. So we assume that Alice and Bob want to communicate an encrypted bit W, and in order to communicate this bit, Alice must stop the protocol if certain conditions are not achieved. A small note, if the protocol is stopped too often by Alice, Walter may become suspicious and cut off any communication between the prisoners. So as a conclusion, Alice can only send a few bits of data to Bob. And here is the actual protocol. So after Alice finishes computing the signature, if R modulo 2 is not equal with the encrypted bit, then she aborts. That's all. If the protocol is successful, R is public, so Bob can simply extract W by computing R modulo 2. Now, a few years later, Simons also found a method to communicate subliminally through his own signing protocol. Now, there's a small difference between Desmond protocol and Simons protocol. In the case of Desmond protocol, Alice wants to communicate with Bob. In the case of Simons protocol, Walter wants to convey information to a third party. And in order to do that, she uses Alice's signature without her suspending anything. That's why the channel is called cuckoo, because just like a cuckoo that lays eggs in the nest of unsuspecting birds, Walter inserts his message into Alice's signature without her suspecting anything. Here is the actual protocol. So we modify step 4. So instead of choosing k second randomly and send it, Walter chooses k second and computes R as t raised to k second. As you remember, t was received from Alice, and she computes this until R is congruent with omega modulo 2. And in order to extract the message, again, R is public, so we can extract the message by simply computing R mod 2. Now, there are some security issues. In order to achieve indistinguishability from Simons protocol, Walter must use sufficient parallel computing power. Why is that? Because if the original protocol lasts 5 seconds, then Walter has 5 seconds to find the desired k second. If the protocol takes longer, then Alice might become suspicious and she might stop the whole protocol. So the more power Walter has, the longer the convey message can be. Why is that? Because he can convey bits more, he can more reliably convey bits to the protocol. And if he does this for several protocols, then he conveys a message that has the same length as the number of protocols. So if Walter uses alpha computing units, then the probability of Walter transmitting his bit undetected is actually 1 minus 1 over 2 to the power alpha. And another thing that is important, the cuckoo's channel must preserve the distribution of R. And in this case, this happens because K is randomly chosen, as is in the original protocol. So there is no discrepancy here. Now, I will show you two signing protocols that fail to prevent these two types of channels that I presented before. So Janssens whole signing protocol is actually based on Schnorr's protocol. So we again select two prime numbers P, Q, and an element G of order Q, and we also select two hash functions, and these are the public parameters. Then we have a Warden generation algorithm and a signer generation algorithm. In the case of the Warden, we simply choose a random T, and we compute the public key of the Warden as G raised to T. And in the case of the signer generation, we choose a random X as before, But instead of computing the public key as j raised to x, we simply compute the public key as z, where z is the public key of the warden raised to x. Here is the actual signing protocol. I will not go in the details. I will just show you that the protocol is really long. It has 8 steps, and it also makes use of a non-interactive zero-knowledge proof, P. So the protocol is quite complex, and it takes a while to complete it. Now, in order to implement a first stop channel, we had to find an element that can be easily recovered, and we managed to do exactly that. So R, if you look at the protocol, R is received by Alice from Walter, and if R is not congruent modulo 2 with our encrypted bit, then Alice aborts the protocol. That's all. Now, R can be easily recovered from the public data. So S and E are public, and Y is the public key of the signer. So we can easily recover R. And if we can recover R, then we can compute R mod 2 to extract our message. Now, we also showed that we can implement a cuckoo channel. These are the original protocol steps, and we had to modify step 4, 6, and 8. Now, in the original protocol, phi has a certain formula, but in our case, we chose phi randomly, and we compute R as in the original scheme, but we compute this until R modulo 2 is congruent with omega. After that, we had to modify the protocol a little bit in order for the verification algorithm to work. Now, again, we have to compute R, and if we can compute R, we can extract W. Now, some security notions. As I said before, we had to modify the protocol such that the verification algorithm works. And we have a small thing to say here, that according to the original authors, Walter will not deviate from the signing protocol. So we had to somehow circumvent this, and the method that we found was to have Walter supply Alice with the same transcript, with a transcript that has the same distribution as the original transcript. That way, nobody can say that Walter deviated from the signing protocol. Since the two distributions are statistically the same, nobody can say that. And also, we showed in the paper that the cuckoo channel preserves exactly this distribution. Now, for the second protocol,
excuse me,
yeah.
just if it's possible, try to speed up a little because we're running out of
time.
time.
I have a few minutes left, so
I'll
not go into details.
Yeah.
So the second protocol is based on the elliptic curve elliptic curve digital signature algorithm. And as before, I just want to show you that the protocol is still pretty long. It has 6 steps. And again, we managed to find some data that can be recovered, and we can stop the protocol if the data is not corresponding to our specifications. Again, we abort if this is not true. And we also managed to find the cuckoo channel that, again, can be embedded in this signature. Again, we had to show that the verification algorithm still works and that the channel preserves the distribution of the transcript. Note that in this case, the authors didn't say that they want to prevent failed stop channels or cuckoo channels, and they also didn't claim that Walter is honest. So we are free to do anything we wanted here. In the previous protocol, the authors said that Walter must be honest, and they specifically claimed that they eliminate failed stop channels. So we proved that that is actually wrong. Now for some conclusions. we managed to prove that the two previous signing protocol are not actually subliminal-free. We can leak some bits using them. And since the main utility of this protocol was to be subliminal-free signatures, and they failed to be so, we suggest that users employ other means of protections against subliminal channels with a lower communication overhead. So this concludes my talk. If you have any questions.
Thank you very much. So any questions, either raise your hand or type your question in the chat. Okay, Cesar.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
One question, are there like practical implementations of this Shang signing protocol and Dong signing protocols that are used?
I have no idea if they actually used it in practice. I was studying subliminal channels. I wanted to see how can we prevent them. And I found these two protocols, and they claimed that the protocols were secure, but something seemed fishy about them since the protocols are really involved.
Yeah.
So I wanted to prove that actually these protocols are not secure. And there are other proposals that can be easily implemented. For example, there is a proposal by Jung et al. In which they use two random number generators. They concatenate the outputs and they hash this concatenation. And you use this as your random number generator. So that way, they prevent you from modifying the random numbers. So there are simpler ways to prevent this. So that's what I actually wanted to prove.
All right, thanks.
No problem.
Okay, I also have a question, if that's okay.
Yes.
Could you please explain what's the problem with making sure that the channel is subliminal free through zero knowledge proofs? Because I think that zero knowledge is a very good way to make sure that nothing was modified and no new bits were embedded into the exchanged messages.
Actually, in zero knowledge proof, it depends. As I said before, subliminal channels usually modify the specification of your algorithm. So in a previous paper of mine, I showed that if you are using a black box device that contains your secret key, and you use that black box device to interact with the verifier, so actually all the data or your data is in a black box, you can modify the black box in such a way that actually somebody else can recover your key, your secret key. So zero knowledge is, it actually always, subliminal channels are always dependent on your implementation, and in some cases are dependent on your specifications. So if you use, for example, the Schnorr zero knowledge protocol, I can modify it in such a way that after 2 runs of the protocol, I can extract your secret key. But in order to do that, I need to be sure that the protocol is implemented into a black box device. So it actually always depends on your actual scenario. Did I?
Yeah, I think, yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
No problem.